بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين محمد رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا كثيرا فما بعد. My dear brothers and sisters, we are in our lesson on the lives of the Anbiya alayhimus salam, and we are looking at the beautiful life of Ibrahim Khalilullah alayhi salam, one of the greatest of the messengers and prophets of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the ancestor of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. We looked at in the last lesson, we looked at that beautiful ayat of Surah Al-Baqarah, where Ibrahim alayhi salam, Allah asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to show how he gives life to the dead. Where he said, وَقَالَ إِبْرَاهِيمُ رَبِّي أَرِنِي كَيْفَ تُحْيِي الْمَوْتَى. He said, "Oh my Rabb, show me how you give life to the dead." We move on from there. Ibrahim alayhi salam then left Haran, and this is where he was giving dawah to those people who were worshippers of the sun and the moon and celestial bodies. And at the end of that set of ayat is the ayah which we recite in Quran, in Salah, before we begin Salah, and also in Salah after Takbir Tahrima, Inni wajjahtu wajhiya lilladhi fatara as-samawati wal ard hanifan wa ma ana minal mushrikeen. So Ibrahim alayhi salam gave them dawah and showed them and told them that we do not worship anyone other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that only and only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is worthy of worship. Then we come to the next part of the journey. Subhanallah, Ibrahim alayhi salam was a traveler. His whole life is of travel, of one place to another. And it's not just aimless travel. His travel is based on, his travel is for the purpose of dawah. And wherever he goes, Ibrahim alayhi salam leaves his mark. He gives dawah to the people. He invites them towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He introduces them to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is the work of Khalilullah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala raised him and raised his darajat. From Haran he went to Egypt. Now in Egypt, the king, the pharaoh there, somebody told him that there is a man traveling, and with the man is an extremely beautiful woman. And that beautiful woman was the wife of Ibrahim alayhi salam, Sarah alayhi salam. So the king ordered for Sarah alayhi salam to be brought to him. This was the ways of the Jabirun, the ways of the oppressors of the world, and to this day this remains. Exploitation of women, trafficking in women. We have officially abolished slavery, in the 18th century. So which is almost 300 years ago, 400 years ago, we abolished slavery. But slavery still continues unabated in the form of human trafficking. The kidnapping of, the majority of that is women, of course, kidnapping of women and of course children. And then they are compelled and they are forced into prostitution, into begging, into all kinds of things. May Allah protect us. Human beings are the only species who do this, who enslave their own kind and who compel them to do the most degraded things. And there are people who make money out of that. I mean, how this is the evil of making money at any cost. Islam does not permit that. This is the difference between Islam and everything else, which is that in many cases people are people go on to one or the other. So you either look at the reason why you make money, which is the end result of that money, and people say, well, this should be good, and as long as that is good, how you make the money, well, we are going to go easy on that. So it's okay, it doesn't matter how you make the money as long as the end result is good. Meaning that if the Robin Hood kind of mentality, where I am stealing from one person in order to give charity to another person. On the other hand, people might say, well, you know what, it doesn't matter, the means has to be good. Goal, whatever it might be, means has to be. Islam says no, both are important. The goal is important and the means are also important. You can't steal to give charity. You must give charity, that's very important. But what is given in charity must be halal. That is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not accept charity from haram income. So if you have which is based on, if your business is based or your income is based on something which Islam has prohibited, the most common of that is, of course, interest-based banking or lending and so on and so forth, based on interest, borrowing based on interest. But of course, can be anything else. The manufacture of and sale of alcohol, manufacture and sale of or sale of cigarettes and pornographic magazines and pornography, the sale of tobacco and tobacco products, manufacturing of tobacco products, manufacturing and sale of all kinds of drugs and so on and so forth. And of course, things like human trafficking, prostitution. One hopes that Muslims are not engaged in that, but one hopes that without much conviction, because one of the biggest sinks of this, one of the biggest consumer bases of this is in the wealthy Muslim countries and with wealthy Muslims. May Allah protect us from ourselves. How incredibly evil is that as a Muslim, that you are a consumer of the product of human trafficking, the product of slavery. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi rajiun. SubhanAllah, I think in Jahannam, Allah probably has made a special place for people like this who indulge in human trafficking and who indulge in the consumption of the process of human trafficking, meaning people who go to prostitutes, people who pay prostitutes, people who support prostitution one way. This is all absolutely incredibly horrible, and I think this is something that we should strongly and vocally condemn, because this is what Rasulullah taught us. He said that if you see something wrong, then stop it with your hand, and if you don't have the strength for that, then speak out against it. And he said, if you don't have the strength for that, then hate it in your heart. That means you don't consume it yourself. You don't participate it in yourself. You don't say, I'm hating it in my heart, but in my shop I'm selling alcohol, and I'm selling tobacco, and I'm selling pornographic magazines, and I'm selling all of this stuff, but I hate it. If you hate it, how do you do that? Right? The whole point of saying I hate it means that I will not touch it. I may not be able to stop it, but certainly you can't do it in my house. You will not do it in my shop. I will not be a party to that in any way. And Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said this last part, which is hating and staying away. He said this is a sign of the weakness of your iman, because if you had iman, not only would you hate it and stay away, but you would also try to stop it to the best of your ability in every way that you can, which is with your tongue, by speaking out against it and by acting against it. So I remind myself and you, let us stop trying to fool Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Ibrahim alayhi salam, of course, was one of those who did this to a level of excellence. So in Egypt, because the king was a man like that, he ordered for Sarah radiallahu anha to be Sarah alayhi salam to be brought. So when they came for Sarah alayhi salam, they asked Ibrahim alayhi salam, they said, who is this lady? And Ibrahim alayhi salam said, she is my sister. Now the reason he said she is my sister was, first of all, she was a sister in Islam. So it was not a lie, as in a blatant lie. But the reason he said that was because if he had not said that, then they would have killed him. Because if he said this is my wife, then they would have killed him, and they would have taken her anyway. So he said she is my sister. So they took her, and when they brought her to the king, when the king reached out to touch her, she made dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the king, the arm of that hand of that king became paralyzed. So he couldn't move. He got terribly frightened. Imagine this happening to him. He got terribly frightened, and he asked her to, to make dua or to relieve him from this. So she asked Allah to relieve him. He became okay. And then he again tried to touch her. So she again made dua, and again he got paralyzed. This happened 3 times. And after the 3rd time, he got so frightened that he told his people, he said, "You have brought, this is not a human being. You have brought me a jinn or something like this. This is not a human being. This is what's happening." So immediately he released her, and to sort of pacify her, he also gave her, as a gift, he gave her a slave girl. And this slave girl was Hajar alayhi salam. So when she now returned with the slave girl as a gift, and Sarah alayhi salam didn't have any children. So she gave this slave girl who she had, Hajar alayhi salam, she gave Hajar alayhi salam to Ibrahim alayhi salam as his wife. So he freed her. Obviously, if he marries her, she gets freed anyway. So he freed her, and from him he had Ismail alayhi salam. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave Ibrahim alayhi salam. He didn't have any children until the age of 80. At that time, Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said that at the age of 80, Ibrahim alayhi salam circumcised himself. Circumcision, which is a sunnah of the Anbiya alayhi salam. This is something that is common to us and to the Jews. We are circumcised at birth or at any time, but we are circumcised. This is from the sunnah of the Anbiya alayhi salam. So Ibrahim alayhi salam circumcised himself at the age of 80, and then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him Ismail alayhi salam. Allah gave him Bashara of Ghulamun Halim, which is Ismail alayhi salam, and Ghulamun Alim, who is Ishaq alayhi salam. So Ismail alayhi salam was born first to Hajar alayhi salam, and then later on we know the story of the 3 angels. We'll come to that, who came and who gave him the Bashara of a second son, who was Ishaq alayhi salam, and his second son he got from Sarah alayhi salam, who was, until then, she didn't have any children, so she was considered to be perhaps barren, but obviously she wasn't. In the commentary in Fath al-Bari, the commentary on Al-Baqarah by commentary on Sahih Bukhari by Imam Ibn al-Hajar al-Asqalani, he said that Ibrahim alayhi salam took Hajar alayhi salam and Ismail alayhi salam to Makkah from Palestine and left them in the middle of the desert, meaning in Makkah, with a sack of dates and one of water. Now, this is a beautiful, beautiful story of this complete obedience, this complete sense of and commitment to obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that Ibrahim alayhi salam had. Right? There was nothing that Ibrahim alayhi salam did not do if Allah ordered him to do it. And Allah himself is the best witness in favor of Ibrahim alayhi salam, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned, وَإِذْ قَالَ لَهُ رَبُّهُ أَسْلِمْ قَالَ أَسْلَمْتُ لِرَبِّ الْعَالَمِينَ. When his Rabb said to him, submit, he said, I have submitted. Now in this story, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that Sarah alayhi salam, people are people, human beings are human beings, no matter how pious and holy and so on you might be, you are still a human, you still have some weaknesses, some failings. We ask Allah to forgive us. And as far as our Salafus Salihin are concerned, the Anbiya are concerned, the Sahaba are concerned, and so on, when we talk about something which they have done, which might seem to be, or which is a mistake, or we talk about some weakness that they may have displayed in their lives, Please understand that it is part of the adab of learning that we do not criticize them. For example, you say Yaqub alayhi salam, the father of Yusuf alayhi salam, and his treatment of Yusuf and Binyamin and the other sons, there was obviously a difference in the way he treated them, which is why the other sons turned against these two sons. Now, you might talk about that, you might show that as an example in terms of in the importance of treating everyone equally in parenting and so on. But at no point in time are you criticizing Yaqub alayhi salam, because this is the Nabi of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Whatever he did, Allah is the one to forgive. It is not our job to sit in judgment on the Anbiya alayhi salam. So also with regard to Ibrahim alayhi salam, Sarah alayhi salam, and so on and so on. So Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam told us that Sarah alayhi salam became jealous of Hajar alayhi salam. And to avoid this conflict, Ibrahim alayhi salam took Sarah alayhi salam. And obviously when we are saying all this, please remember that Ibrahim alayhi salam did not do this just like that, right? He didn't take his wife and child and dump them in the desert to get rid of them or to kill them. For that, he didn't have to travel from Palestine all the way to Makkah. He could have done it outside his house. He could have done it, he could have gone 10 miles and dumped them somewhere. Or he could have just told her, go away, right? He could have divorced her and given her away to somebody and say, well, marry this woman and take care of the child. I mean, there are a million options that he could have done if he was only worried or afraid about the jealousy of his wife Sarah against his wife Hajar. And if he just wanted to get rid of Hajar alayhi salam and her son, he could have done that. But first of all, it makes zero sense, because this son is the son he got after 80 years, when he was 80 years old or more, after Allah knows how many decades of making dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So why would he want to get rid of them anyway? That's the first thing. Secondly, you are looking at somebody of the stature of Ibrahim alayhi salam. He's not bothered about some jealousy between co-wives. Okay, so they are jealous. So what? So now put her up, set her up in a different house. Khalas, matter is over. He doesn't have to take her all the way to Makkah. When he is doing something, when the Nabi does something, the Nabi is doing something because of a wahi from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because of the instruction of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So let us understand that. Because I've been hearing of late people making these completely ridiculous statements about the Anbiya alayhi salam, specific also to this incident with regard to Ibrahim alayhi salam. They should fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and they should fear the anger of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Adab is fundamental to the deen. There is no learning without adab. There is no learning until you submit yourself, until you become submissive in the face of the kalam of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that Sarah alayhi salam was jealous, and so Ibrahim alayhi salam, this is the order of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he took his wife Hajar, and he took his newborn son Ismail, and he traveled with them, and he left them in the valley of Makkah. Now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decreed this, so he left them there, and then he left a bag of dates, and he left a water skin with them, and he turned around and he started walking back. Now obviously in that situation, what would his wife do? She followed him until he came to this place called Kada, which is where the valley opens, and he's on the main road going north. And she asked him, to whom are you leaving us? You are leaving us here and going away. So who is going to look after us? To whom are you leaving us? And Ibrahim alayhi salam pointed to the heavens. He says, to Allah. So Hajar alayhi salam, look at now this lady's taqwa, and look at her own tawakkul, and look at her own strength. She said, then go. He said, go. Allah will not allow us to perish. She said, did your Rabb ask you to do this? And he nodded his head. She said, then go. Then go. Now imagine, this is the khudrat of Allah, how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala strengthens the heart. Now, having done that, Ibrahim alayhi salam now is not visible to them. He's gone over the lip of the valley. She comes back to her son, newborn baby is there on the ground, and then she doesn't just sit there. Having said, Allah, I have tawakkul on Allah, that Allah will not allow us to perish, she didn't just sit there and wait for things to happen. She also exercised effort. Now, this is a question that a lot of people ask. They say, well, if I have tawakkul, then am I permitted to use means? If I have tawakkul, then am I permitted to use whatever tools or resources that Allah has given me? Should I do that? If I have tawakkul, for example, and if I'm sick, then should I go to the hospital? Should I go to the doctor? Should I take medicines? Or should I simply say, I have tawakkul on Allah, so I make dua and I sit and hoping that Allah will cure me? Now, having said this, please understand, if somebody is doing that, if somebody says, I will not go to the hospital, I will not consult a doctor, I have tawakkul on Allah, I am making dua, dua is my medicine, Allah is my doctor, and inshallah, if Allah wills, Allah will cure me. Believe me, that person, what he is doing is not haram. It is not haram. It is something that if he is doing, he is responsible for it, and inshallah, if Allah wants, Allah can cure him. Because at the end of the day, the cure is from Allah only. So I'm not saying this is haram. I'm just saying that, however, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also gave you the means to use. That does not mean the means is the cure. The means is given to you by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So therefore, use the means. Like the other day I mentioned to you in another lecture, Musa alayhi salam had a headache. So he asked Allah, oh Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, cure my headache. Now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala could have cured his headache, but Allah told him, go to that particular tree, take the leaves, boil them, make a tea and drink it, and your headache will be cured. Now why is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala pointing him to means? Because Allah can cure him. In the end, the cure comes from Allah anyway. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is showing us what to do. So he told him, here are the means. Now Musa alayhi salam goes there, he takes these leaves, he boils it and so on, makes the tea, drinks it, his headache is gone. Now after some time, Musa alayhi salam got the headache again. So Musa alayhi salam said, well, I know the cure. So he goes to the tree, he takes the leaves, boils them, makes a tea, drinks it, nothing happens. Nothing happens, headache gets worse. Now Musa alayhi salam makes dua, Ya Allah, I have a headache, and now last time I had a headache, you told me go to the tree, make the tea, I did that. This time I did it, it's not working, my headache is worse. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Musa, the cure is not in the leaves, the cure is in the dua. I sent the cure. Last time you made dua to me, and I told you go to the leaves. This time you went to the leaves yourself without making dua. So make dua. So there are lessons in both parts of the story. We are not saying Musa alayhi salam did anything wrong. No. Allah is teaching us lessons through both parts of the story. Here is one part which is adopt the means which have been given to you. There is nothing wrong in that. By all means do that. The second part of the story is don't rely on the means, rely on Allah. Adopt the means. Don't go without the means. Adopt the means, but make dua and know that the cure comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The means, why are you using the means? Because Allah told me to use the means. Because Allah gave me this resource. So Allah gave me the doctor, Allah gave me the hospital, Allah gave me the medicine. So if I use it, then I am doing it in keeping with and in obedience to the order of Allah. But I know the cure is not in the hand of the doctor, it is not in the hospital, it is not in the medicine. Cure is from Allah. So I use the means and then I stand before Allah and I say, oh Allah, please help me. Another beautiful example of this is in the life of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the Battle of Badr. He had the means, whatever he had, whether it was more, whether it was less. He used the means. He did not reject the means. He used the means, and then he stood in dua and he said, oh Allah, if these people perish. He didn't say, oh Allah, I have the means, I take care of myself. No. He said, oh Allah, if these people perish, there will be no one to help, no one to worship you. Oh Allah, you promised me your help. Please give me your help. He is making dua. In the Battle of Hunain, when the Sahaba did not do that, when they relied on their means alone, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed the ayat of Surah Tawbah, where He explained to us. Allah said, you had relied on your means. We have got 10,000 troops, we are fully armed, we can fight. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala converted that into a defeat, into an absolute rout. They were running for their lives until Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brought down His help, and that happened because of the dua of Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And even when he made the dua, he said, call the Ansar. He told Abdullah ibn Masud, radiallahu anhu, he said, call the Ansar. He could have just made dua. No. Again means. But use the means. Once the Ansar came, he didn't say, okay, fine, we are good to go. No. The Ansar surrounded him. But he made dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent his malaika, and Allah turned the tail of battle, and the Sahaba, the Muslims, in that battle of Hunain got the largest amount of booty that they had ever got from anywhere before that. So Ibrahim alayhi salam, Hajar alayhi salam now, she is using mean. What's the mean she had? Her own self. She had nothing else. Her own self, her own energy, her own effort. So what does she do? She climbs Safa. She climbs the hill of Safa. She looks around, nothing to see, nobody there, no resource. She comes down, she checks her baby, then she goes to Marwa, which is a distance away, and then she climbs that hill, and she's looking around, she sees nothing. She comes down from there, and then obviously I'm sure she must have got anxious about the baby. So in that valley, she runs. Then she stops to look at the child. Baby is okay. She climbs Safa again. And she does it. How long does she do it? She does it until the help of Allah comes. She doesn't stop. She doesn't say, well, you know what, I just went there 10 minutes ago, or what's going to change, right? So what's the point in going again? No. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, again and again and again. She did that. And my brothers and sisters, remember, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala liked what she did so much that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made that into one of the manasik, one of the arkan of Hajj. Sa'i is a part of our Umrah, it's a part of our Hajj. Allah made the action that Hajar alayhi salam took because she needed to take it. She took the action because she did that because she needed to take it. She did that because she was concerned about her child. Allah made that into an act of ibadah for which Allah gives you jannah. And Allah liked that action so much that even that running in the valley is a part of the rukn. We run in that valley. Today there is no valley there, but we still run in that space between the two green lights. She ran because she was concerned about her child. We have no child to look after, we are still running. Allah liked that action so much that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala immortalized the action of that one woman. She was not a Nabi, she was not a Rasul. She was the mother of Anbiya. She was the wife of Khalilullah, Ibrahim alayhi salam. Allah loved that action so much that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made his own Nabi, Sayyidul Mursaleen, Imamul Anbiya, Muhammadur Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Allah made his own Nabi do that action. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam ran in that place. Hey. The reward of tawakkul on Allah. So she ran up and down, up and down, up and down. And she ran 7 times, but how do you know, sir? Because it was 7, because then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent Jibreel alayhi salam. And Jibreel alayhi salam dug the well of Zamzam. And water started coming out. Imagine, barren desert. There's not a drop of water anywhere, there's not a blade of grass anywhere, there's no tree, nothing. And out of that, just where the little baby is lying, Jibreel alayhi salam dug out. And water started coming out. And water started flowing, and out then the humanity of Hajar alayhi salam. Imagine, what's the first thing you will do in that place? Place of tremendous water insecurity, water scarcity. The water is coming out, it's flowing. She doesn't want to lose the water. So what does she do? She builds a wall around, Zamzam. She says, Zamzam, stop. Puts a wall around it. And that's how it's called the well of Zamzam. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that, may Allah bless our mother. If she had not put the wall, it would have been a river. It would have been a river. My brothers and sisters, think about that. think about this. This is Ibrahim alayhi salam and his wife alayhi salam. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, here's this water now, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent birds. So now the birds come to drink water, the birds in the sky. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends a whole tribe of people called Jurhum from Yemen. The Jurhum come there. And what do they see? They see water. They see fresh water. The biggest treasure for desert travelers. There's nothing, the gold mine would not make them happier than to see a well of fresh, sweet water. And what do they see? They see this lone woman, one single woman with a little baby. What do? They do something which is so mind-boggling, which is so unprecedented, which is so unimaginable, that I can only say that this is the sign of the greatness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is a sign of the acceptance of the dua of Ibrahim alayhi salam. And we'll come to the dua maybe in the next class. I don't want to hurry through this. This is one of the most beautiful stories of the Quran. What do? They ask permission of Hajar alayhi salam to settle in that valley. They ask her permission. Yeah? Who was Hajar alayhi salam? Imagine, here is this tribe. What is the meaning of tribe? And what is the meaning of a traveling tribe who are coming from some land? It means, the tribe means that this caravan has chieftains in it, it has warriors in it, it has their women and children, it has all their things they need for life, their tents and their cattle and their sheep and their camels and their horses, their donkeys. They have all of that. All resources you can imagine, because the whole tribe is migrating, so they've got everything, but they are led by powerful warriors, they are led by big chieftains. In the normal course of things, what would have happened to a single woman standing there? At best, one of them, if she was good looking, one of them would have taken her for his wife. That's it. The chief or somebody would have claimed her as a wife, and that's the end of the story. Worst case scenario, they would have killed her. You're looking at the 7th century. This will happen even today. You don't have to go all the way back to the 7th century. What happens to lone women? What happens to single lone women in a wilderness who are confronted by armed, powerful men? Illa mashallah. Nothing has changed, believe me. Human beings are as barbaric as they always were. May Allah save us from ourselves. But Allah put in their hearts. So what do? They ask her permission. Do we have your permission to settle here? What does she want? She needs them. She's alone, she's got nobody. So she needs somebody there. But she's the wife of Ibrahim alayhi salam. She doesn't want to marry anyone. She wants to be there, and she needs resources. So she says to them, yes, I give you permission to settle here, but the water belongs to me and my son. So you will not have any right to the water. Meaning, you can use the water. Obviously, if she says you cannot touch the water, then they have no reason to settle there. He said, you can use the water, but ownership is ours. So if you are using the water, remember you're using it because we have permitted you to use the water. Right? This is a sign of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's what I say to you, that this is a sign of my Rabb Jalla Jalaluhu. Now, and they agreed. And that is what the beginning of the settlement that today we know as the city of Makkah, Mukarramah. Now, Ibrahim alayhi salam, this happened because of the dua of Ibrahim alayhi salam. Ibrahim alayhi salam when he went away, and as I told you, he went over the lip of the valley, so now they can't see him. He turned around and he made dua. And he said, رَبَّنَا إِنِّي أَسْكَنْتُ مِنْ ذُرِّيَّتِي بِوَادٍ غَيْرِ ذِي زَرْعٍ عِنْدَ بَيْتِكَ الْمُحَرَّمِ رَبَّنَا لِيُقِيمُوا الصَّلَاةَ فَاجْعَلْ أَفْئِدَةً مِنَ النَّاسِ تَحْوِي إِلَيْهِمْ وَارْزُقْهُمْ مِنَ الثَّمَرَاتِ لَعَلَّهُمْ يَشْكُرُونَ. I am not going to go into the explanation of this dua, but I suffice to say that Ibrahim alayhi salam said, "O our Rabb, I have made some of my offspring to dwell in an uncultivable valley by your sacred house, in order, O our Rabb, that they may establish a salah. So fill some hearts among men with love towards them, and O Allah, provide them with fruits so that they may give thanks." Inshallah, we look at the explanation of this dua in our next class. So in this class, I am not going into this dua and its explanation, which is very beautiful and extremely important. So I don't want to hurry that, but think about this, that the reward of ta'alluq ma'allah is tawakkul ala Allah. The reward of ta'alluq with Allah is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will put reliance upon Him in your heart, and that is a reward from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Tawakkul is a reward from Allah. Tawakkul doesn't happen because of our effort. We make the effort, but Allah gives the reward. Now, see the case of Hajar alayhi salam. She ran up and down the hills, but the help of Allah which came didn't come directly as a part of that running up and down hills. Meaning that, for example, she didn't climb one hill to see something there. She didn't climb Safa or Marwa to see the Jurhum coming. So she said, "Okay, good, now I have some help coming." She didn't climb there and she didn't see a well of water there. So she said, "Oh, fantastic, now I've got some water, let me go there." She didn't climb the hill and she didn't see a pile of, bread or something or food. No. Help came from a completely unexpected source, which is from the heavens directly. Jibreel alayhi salam came and he dug the well of Zamzam there. What does that tell us? It tells us that tawakkul consists of having complete and total reliance on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala Himself, and then making the effort, and the effort should be an effort which is jaiz and halal, and then completely relying on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for His help. So we make the effort, but we don't rely on the effort, we rely on Allah. Tawakkul ala al-asbab huwa shirk. Tawakkul ala al-asbab huwa shirk. Having tawakkul on the asbab is shirk. So we don't make tawakkul on the asbab. We use the asbab. We don't trust the asbab. That is the reason why people whose reliance is really on the asbab, on the means, despite the reliance on the means, the fear in their heart doesn't go away. Despite having all the means, they are still afraid. You must check our hearts. If you have tawakkul, you cannot have fear. These are two mutually exclusive things, like light and darkness. The one who has tawakkul cannot have fear. The one who has fear does not have tawakkul. His tawakkul is deficient or absent. Good classic case is COVID. If I say my reliance is on Allah, do I still take precautions? Do I still wear a face mask? Yes. Do I still maintain distance? Yes. Do I still wash my hands? Yes. But I have no fear of getting COVID. I have complete and total reliance on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Does it mean that I feel I will never get COVID? No. I say, Alhamdulillah, I have taken recourse to the means, I have relied on Allah, and now I am content with the qadar of Allah. If Allah wants me to get COVID, Alhamdulillah. If Allah wants to save me from COVID, Alhamdulillah. I'm not losing sleep over COVID. I'm not afraid of COVID. I'm not nervous because I've relied on Allah. If I am doing all of these precautions and still there is fear in my heart, then I must ask myself, do I have Iman? Do I have tawakkul on Allah? I must check myself. If I am not taking the precautions and I simply say I have tawakkul on Allah, then I must check my intelligence. Because Allah gave me the means. Allah told me to use the means. I don't want to use them. And I say, no, if Allah wants, I will get it. No. You have no right to do that. Because by your action, you are potentially endangering others also. If you deliberately put yourself into a situation which is life-threatening, then that might amount to suicide. So, Islam is a balanced approach. It's the middle path. We take the precaution, but we do not rely on the precaution. I wear a seat belt and I drive according to the law, according to the laws of the land. I drive safely, but I have reliance for my safe journey, not on the seat belt, not on the car, not on my driving, but on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. On the other hand, I don't refuse to wear a seat belt. I don't drive like a maniac. And I say, no, if Allah wants, He will protect me. No. That is wrong. Both are, this would be an extreme. To not use the means and to deliberately flout them and then to say, if Allah wants, He will do. No. We take precautions, but we rely on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Hajar alayhi salam, she made the effort, but she relied on Allah. So what did Allah do? Allah did what He promised. وَمَنْ يَتَّقِ اللَّهَ يَجْعَلْ لَهُ مَخْرَجًا. The one who has taqwa, Allah will remove him from his difficulty. Allah will extract him out of his difficulty. وَيَرْزُقْهُ مِنْ حَيْثُ لَا يَحْتَسِبْ. And He will provide him from sources that he could not imagine. Hajar alayhi salam could not have imagined that Jibreel alayhi salam will come and dig the well. Allah provided for her from sources that she could not imagine. وَمَنْ يَتَوَكَّلْ عَلَى اللَّهِ فَهُوَ حَسْبُهُ. The one who has tawakkul on Allah, Allah will become sufficient for him. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala became sufficient for her. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala preserved her. He preserved her son. He preserved her integrity. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala provided her from sources that she could not have imagined. And He put the love of Hajar alayhi salam and respect for her and the love of Ismail alayhi salam into the hearts of people who were complete strangers. The Jurhum who came from Yemen, and that whole story continues inshallah more in the next class. Wa sallallahu ala nabiyil kareem wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajmain bi rahmatika ya arhamar rahimin walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.